Yo, what is up, my dudes? So, I wanted to talk a little bit about why I love mythic raiding, or just raiding in general in WoW. And uh, one of the first experiences I had was doing this raid called Serpentshrine Cavern in the Burning Crusade. This was my first raid that was bigger than like 10-man Karazhan. And, you know, this raid had so much ambiance and just it's so interesting. Like for someone that's never played anything like this, you walk in and the first thing you do is you go under a waterfall. Then the next thing you see is this giant elevator that has the shape of the Nagas that you're about to defeat because this is just some underground temple inside of in Zanger Marsh in the Burning Crusade. And you can imagine that there's just 25 people just slowly invading into this this raid environment, and it's so different than the dungeons that you've seen up until this point. You have these kind of like ambiance, like kind of going through the back channels here. We're going underneath um these kind of pipes here, and we're taking the back elevator through this. We're not going through the front door. um and you're just kind of like invading, and then you open up and you just see this kind of like city here, and just these random these random trash mobs that are set up, and you miss with your rain of fire there, and you're kind of breaking in. And this was just like such a cool experience for me. I remember when we were doing this raid for the first time, and I'm like, gosh, I had to have been like maybe 13, 14 years old, and I'm being told we're going to kill Hydros, this big water elemental. I don't even know what was going on. I'm just like, 24 other people, I have no idea who these are, and I just need to not mess up. That's that's all I need to do is just not mess up. I'm playing Holy Paladin. I'm freaking out, and you have these just experiences of like, you know, this is so new. This is so crazy. And I don't know. There's something about it where you feel like there's this level of excitement, this level of um I don't understand what's going on, or like, these bosses. I didn't even know that bosses had mechanics and what the mechanics do. Um it was such a I can't believe. I just like can't believe when you play single player games and then suddenly you're in a game with 25 other people, and you're all doing some kind of coordinated activity. It's just there's nothing else like it. There's nothing else like it. Let's see if I can skip ahead here. So the next thing is when you're going to the final boss of this raid, you need to activate this panel, all right? So you go ahead and you click this panel, and suddenly everything changes. I'm gonna go ahead and kill some mobs here, but this giant bridge forms, and there's swirlies on the outside, and you're like, whoa, this is serious. You have this huge, you have 25 people bottlenecked, and you're all walking across this bridge together to defeat the final boss, and you can kind of see her up top, and she's yelling about water is life and water is love. And let me tell you, as a holy paladin, I never got to see the top of this platform, and I'm about to tell you why. And this is the reason why I love mythic rating. Okay, every other boss up until this point was a healer mechanic. Or sorry, it's just a regular healer fight. We're just healing up people that took damage, and that's it. That there's nothing crazy, there's nothing special. It's not that much different than doing a dungeon. And this fight, as a holy paladin specifically, was the exact moment that I knew that I wanted to do this forever. So you're kind of, you might be picking up what I'm putting down here, but in this fight there is geometry that's laid out where you have um a pathing situation where my pet over here has to go all the way around and all the way back. Now, one of the major mechanics of this fight is that Lady Vash, who's this boss and the final boss of this fight, spawns ads. Okay? And your raid is supposed to deal with these ads. You're supposed to have a main tank and an off tank dealing with these ads. And that's it. That's kind of the mechanic of the fight. Our raid group said, what if we didn't have to deal with those ads? What if we didn't have to handle this? And so we had a what I would describe as a clever use of game mechanics. Now, back in the Burning Crusade, paladins, because they also tanked, had this ability called Righteous Fury, which increased the amount of threat generated by their holy spells by a significant amount. This is kind of like Tank Stance or something like that, where suddenly you can now, take a significantly more amount of threat on mobs, um, by attacking them with your holy spells. And this is intended for prot paladins tanking. Now, all paladins had this ability. Kind of like how all paladins right now have the taunt ability, but in this version of the game, this use of game mechanics is that we would have the holy paladin, which was me, put on this stance, and then they would heal a target in order to generate threat. And healing generates threat equal to how much you have effectively healed, which is interesting because now we have to think, well, how am I able to effectively heal when the raid is all the way up here? When the raid, let's see, where am I? When the raid is all the way up here. So you have a warlock that sits over here and life taps the entire time, kind of similar to how Burning Rush does. And the warlock is just life tapping the entire time, and my job is to be constantly healing him with flash of light or holy light. And at this point, because I'm doing so much healing, effective healing, and so much threat because of the multiplier, now I'm pulling in the ads that are spawning throughout this fight. And the ads are coming down here and starting to path to attack me. And so I am responsible for healing this warlock so that I'm generating threat, as well as you have to plant to cast, and then also kiting these mobs as they go slowly and slowly across this. And the thing that gets pretty crazy here is that there's not just one set of mobs that spawn. There are like 4 or 5 sets of mobs that spawn over the course, and they can all, because this is janky, it's not clear, it's not consistent as to how the mobs will behave. So you can kind of see here is that I'm intended to be healing, healing, healing. As the mobs get closer, I have to come over here. Now, if I jump or fall, I have to realign myself, and then be healing, healing, generating threat, then move over to the other side. And you can kind of see here that these mobs are not on the same exact walking pattern. So you have to kind of like manipulate the mobs so that when the new ones are coming down, the ones that you do already have attacking you are not all the way over here, because now you have a significantly less amount of like time spent, like a significantly less amount of time to like make a mistake, because now there's, this takes them probably about, I don't know, maybe 5 seconds or so, maybe 10 seconds to get from here to here. But that is based off of what the slowest one, what the last one on the train and the first one on the train is, how long it takes. So if you have you have mobs that are kind of tethered over here and what mobs that are tethered over here, you've now cut that 5 seconds into 2 seconds, maybe 1 second, and it's not enough time to be able to. It's not enough time to be able to cast a heal off and get threat on the next ads that are spawning. In addition, if you cast Bubble, which is normally Paladin's defensive option at this time, they immediately lose threat and then attack the raid. So you don't have any moment of making a mistake during this. And our uh our fight, our raid was essentially progressed by me being able to do this mechanic, being able to kite these and control these mobs. I've looked on YouTube to try to find a video of someone doing this, and I don't have no recording. I could not find any recording of paladins doing this during this raid. And I I just think that, like, for me, when I was doing this for the first time, again, 13, 12, 13, 14 years old, I am like, what the heck is going on? Like, what is this? This is not any dungeon fight that I've done before. This is not any raid fight that I've done before in like Karazhan. This is so completely different, and it just almost a completely different game where you're manipulating these game mechanics. And when this happened, when we did this, and I was able to successfully do this mechanic, this kiting mechanic, over the course of an entire night, and we killed the boss. I have no idea what any of the mechanics of this boss do, and I have never felt better about killing a boss. It was so cool to kind of progress myself on my own lane and learn how to do this thing that completely unrelated to the rest of the fight. No one else in the fight knows how to do this. If you had to give someone else in our raid the control, especially not the warlock. The warlock, all they had to do was press light tap the whole time. They couldn't even DPS because they didn't want to pull aggro. Um no one else in our raid could do this, but I had practiced and learned this to the point where I had an expertise in it, and we were able to kill the boss after doing it for multiple minutes in a row. And every time, like, these, some people might consider these cheese mechanics, or clever use of game mechanics, and I think that being able to siphon off one other or two other people to do kind of an interesting, um something different in the raid from everyone else is so unique to World of Warcraft. It's so unique to MMO raiding because you need to be in an environment where you're playing with at least one other person, maybe even, 4 to 8 other people, um because you need to be able to lose a certain percentage of your damage and a certain percentage of your healing. So we were essentially sacrificed. The raid decided that we were not going to have a DPS and a healer, and be able to essentially 23 man the rest of the fight by getting rid of. And the benefit was, getting rid of this ads mechanic. That was worth it to the raid, and that's a trade off that you can make. And these mechanics are so cool, and there's just little ones that are kind of sprinkled in every so often where a group finds a different way or a different strategy than was intended. And it's just kind of sweet. It's just kind of sweet. I This was one of my first encounters in doing mythic raiding, and honestly, I have just been, yeah, you look at this YouTube channel and you can see I've been playing ever since. I've been playing ever since. So that's a little look back in history, and I hope you all enjoyed that.